Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Circle of the World video. I'm your host, Harrison, the Adeptus Historical, and today we're just going to be probably doing a little bit of a shorter one. I came up on to the tier list site, and I had found, I don't know how new these are, but I found some more First Law tier list ones, so I think I'm going to be going through them. Some more pictures, there's an extended character one, but today I definitely want to do ranking the books. So I appreciate whoever made this, but I'm actually going to change this to actually not good because I think all of them are good to least favorite. So I like this top one, greater than Juven's, greater than A's himself. So I'm going to try to keep it balanced. Keep in mind, these are all like S tier books for me. They're my favorite books. This is the reason why we have a podcast for it. So I just am going to throw these up on here the way I see fit. First up, we have A Little Hatred. This video actually might be longer than I think it's going to be, just simply because I'm going to feel conflicted. I'm actually not, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of A Little Hatred. In terms of these books, I love all of them, but to me, I just don't like it all that much. I kind of get the same vibe with the Blade itself. Like, it's great setup, and it's entertaining. And the characters are written really well, and there's more happens than in the Blade itself. But to me, it just, I don't know, it doesn't have the same drive, doesn't have the same. I just don't enjoy it as much. I think it's just a setup standpoint. There's not too much payoff. There's not really too many twists and turns in this one. It just, for me, not a lot happens in it. No, that's not right at all. A lot happens in it. I guess it doesn't engage me. When I'm reading it, it kind of feels like something like with a lot of his books where I'm like, constantly like, what's going to happen next? Even on reread-throughs, I'm like, oh man, I got to keep reading this. This is so good. It's a page turner. To me, A Little Hatred isn't a page turner. Obviously, it's an amazing book. But to me, I think I'm going to put it in solid in terms of First Law tier list. Best Served Cold. I think Best Served Cold is one of his best books. The only thing is it kind of drags a bit, but it's its own story. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna leave that there for now. I don't want to do it yet. Before They Hanged. I think Before They Hanged is damn good. It's the second time I read the series. I thought it was like my favorite book, but reading it again and again, I really enjoy it, and especially at the end, there's just a lot that goes on, and there's so much character development. But compared to the other books, I don't think it's as good as some of these other ones. It's still absolutely fantastic, but that's the only caveat. I just don't think it's as good. The Heroes. It's definitely greater than Juven's, greater than Ayu's himself. The Heroes, I think, in my opinion, is Joe's best writing on page. It's fast-paced, but it slows down enough where it needs to. You're constantly turning the page. You can't stop reading it. The writing style on it is so good. Now, in terms of like the story, it's not my favorite. In terms of like the plot, it's not my favorite. But like, because it's so good at the actual writing core itself, because the literature in it is so fantastic, I got to put it up there. Because thinking about the Heroes, it doesn't sound that great. But whenever you're actually reading it, you're so into it that you can't help but just not put the book down. Like, you're thinking about it all day. I can't wait to read it again. It's just built different, all right? Red Country. I'm gonna go out of order because this is difficult for me. Sharp Ends. I want to put Sharp Ends as my least favorite. I'm pretty sure everybody's gonna do this one here, but it's simple, right? It has the least amount of content. It has the least amount of plot. It's got a couple new characters. It's really fun, and by no means is it bad in any way, but it's quite solid. I know I have a solid rating right there, but I would say it's my least favorite. I don't think I'm gonna have to put any other ones down there. I didn't have to put that one there, but I do say I like it less compared to the other books, but just not by much. There's just less meat there. I think everyone can understand that. All right, I'll rate Best Served Cold. I might have to move it though, because I really really like Best Served Cold. But I like it as its own individual story, and I'm not sure it's the best. I'm gonna put Best Served Cold in high tier. I think I'll probably have it in the top of high tier. I think it's his best like standalone story. Like you could read Best Served Cold out of context of the other stories and be just as entertained as you would be with reading it. Maybe a little bit less entertained because you don't have Shivers or Giselle in it and things like that. But to me, Best Served Cold is written very well. The only issue with it is it kind of drags a little bit. And it is the biggest book, I believe, except maybe Wisdom of Crowds. But that's the only reason it's not in the best tiers, because this one is like, oh my god, this book is absolutely amazing. Like, it's so good. But Best Served Cold is extremely well written, as all his books are, with extremely interesting characters. But the plot is a little bit basic, and you kind of know what's going to happen throughout. You expect something else to happen, then it just keeps going on the way you intended it to go, or the way you expected it to go. So I think it's good there. Last Argument of Kings. Man, it's easy to put this one up in greater than Jubas himself, but I think I want to spread it out, right? I want to distinguish my absolute favorite books between and then the ones that I mediocrely like and the ones that I absolutely love. So I'm going to put Last Argument of Kings there. I think it's right below Best Served Cold. Everything, the entire list is razor thin margin. Like, they're all back to back to back to back. And my opinion would probably change on when I'm reading it. If I'm reading it, I'm like, this is the best book I've ever read. Last Argument of Kings is a big conclusion to the first trilogy. There's some great action. We finally get all this setup from the other two books paid off. It's very exhilarating. And then the last half of the book is just like, oh. It's like all these big moments. And we don't really get those big moments in a lot of the rest of the series. And I think they're done really, really well there. And he doesn't lose any of his character moments throughout those big series moments. Red Country. I'm gonna do the Blade itself first. I think the Blade itself goes right here. It's kind of hard to read when you go back and read it, not in a negative way, just in comparison to the other books, because you like it, it's written fine, but I mean, even Joe admits that like this is probably his worst written book, just only because of pacing, and yeah, his characters are set up brilliantly, and this is the one that started it all, but I just don't like it as much as any of the other books, except probably Sharp Ends. Reading it, it's fantastic. You know, it's an amazing book, but a lot of it's just set up. It's slow. It's kind of drawn out. And whenever all the other books have a lot going on without being a setup book. Red Country. To me, Red Country, man, I don't know. I don't know. I think Red Country for me is just solid. Because I think it's better, in my opinion, I enjoy it more than A Little Hatred or The Blade itself. But Red Country has one distinct quality that sets it above everything else. And I feel like it gets too much credit for that one thing. And that one thing is Lamb. I mean, Logan's inside the book. And in my opinion, he kind of carries it. I like Shy, and I like Temple, and I enjoy the rest of the cast, but not nearly as much as the cast of the others. To me, it's the most forgettable book, but I can't deny that whenever I read it, I fucking love seeing everything about Logan, all the subtle things. Shy's character is quite interesting in her own right. Temple is a huge change of pace for a character, and it's a huge refresher compared to how the other books are, because it's written. The characters are so much different in Red Country. It's a lot more lively. The whole book is a lot more lively. But I would say that I don't like it as much as a lot of the other books, simply because I feel like it's carried by Logan. And without Logan being in it, it would not be nearly as good of a book. But it's still really, really great. It's still amazing. So I'm going to put it above these two. The Trouble with Peace is actually my favorite. It's my favorite book in the series. I feel like it's a big page turner like the Heroes. I feel like it has these big moments like in the Last Argument of Kings. I feel like they have these fun little character interactions like they do in Before the Hanged. They have these this plot and kind of development of the story like they do in Best of Cold, this progressive movement. It's using the payoff from the other books, and the action is amazing. It has got this amazing battle. I think it has it all. It's probably one of my favorite books of all time, period. Because whenever I pick up The Trouble with Peace, I'm like, wow, that's a book right there. It's by far, not by far, it's, like I said, razor thin margins between all of them, but it's my favorite Joe Abercrombie book, most certainly, and definitely in the First Law. And then Wisdom of Crowds. I go off and on this one, right? It's hard for other people's opinions not to affect yours sometimes. And I'm just being honest when I say that. Because a lot of people don't like this book, or they think it's not as good as the others because the things didn't turn out the way they expected it to, which is understandable. I expected a little bit more in terms of like some magic, but other than that, I was never disappointed in it. And to me, whereas The Heroes, The Trouble with Peace is written really well, the twist in the Wisdom of Crowds and the character development and like the overall stakes of the revolution and how that affects society is something that really strikes a chord with me and is important, I feel, for people to understand. Like, you know, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Revolution isn't a great thing most of the time. It really isn't, just because so many people suffer. And then in the end, not much changes. And I really like what the book says about people and society, and I really like where the characters end up, and there's quite a bit of payoff in it. People may disagree with the payoff side of things, but there's quite a bit of payoff for the entire series. But man, it depends. It's always how I feel. So I think because of the way I feel about it, I think I'm going to put it right here. No, if I can get it in there. Come on, son. Let's try this. There we go. I think that the Wisdom of Crowds is the most like philosophical of the books. It's got the most to say. Overall, I think there's less so just about the characters at that point. There's so much going on in the world, and there's so many like little details in the story. Some characters kind of get shunted off to the side though, and sometimes it doesn't feel like its high moments are so high and its low moments are so low. But I think that still carries it beyond. Without the setup of the other books, man, see, this is what I'm talking about. I think Best Through Cold is... It probably just depends on the day. I'm going to leave it like that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that. Because, to me, Best Through Cold is really, really good. But it just depends on my mood. So right now, this is what I'm feeling. But yeah, everybody. This is where I'm going to place the books for me. My fellow co-host, Jeff the Lord Chamberlain, and George the Arch Lector probably will have these placed a little bit differently, but for me, the Adeptus Historical, this is where I would place Joe Abercrombie's First Law series in order. And whoever started making more tier lists, maybe I was just blind before, but I feel like somebody saw the video, saw that there needed to be more tier lists. I asked for like a more, like ones with names, that way you could actually figure out who they were. And now there is one. So if somebody did that, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to be using that, and I'm excited to do so. So thank you for this person right here. I believe 616. So make sure to follow and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure to go on the social media platforms. I'll have some links in the description below. Of course, watch the podcast if you guys prefer a more in-depth breakdown of the series, me and my co-hosts have a lot of fun. So comment down below, let me know what you guys would place it, and of course I'm sure some of you guys will chop off my heads for placing books where I place them. But have a good one, guys. Thank you for watching.